What if I told you that weakness isn't really about making mistakes or failing? It's not about losing a fight, missing an opportunity, or facing setbacks. No. Real weakness is often far more insidious. It's woven into the very fabric of how you react to life's challenges. The way you might crave approval. And perhaps, the way you surrender control over your own emotions. Here's the crucial truth: women can often sense this kind of underlying weakness. Sometimes instantly. They might perceive it even before you fully recognize it in yourself. And whether we like it or not, this perception significantly shapes how they see you, how they respond to you. Today, we're breaking down 7 hidden habits that silently signal this kind of weakness, habits that might be unknowingly damaging your presence, undermining your confidence, and hindering your ability to command genuine respect. Let's dive in. You see, weakness isn't what many think. It's not about stumbling or falling short. Those are inevitable parts of growth. Real weakness lies deeper, in an inability to handle adversity gracefully, an obsession with external validation, and a lack of mastery over your emotional responses. As the Stoics taught, true strength comes from within. It's not about outward bravado, but about mastering your thoughts, your reactions, your inner world. So, let's explore 7 ways this perceived weakness often manifests. Sometimes without you even realizing it. Recognize these patterns. Work to eliminate them. And observe how people begin to respond differently to your presence. Number 1, you seek constant validation. One of the most glaring signs of inner weakness is a persistent craving for approval from others. Women, in particular, can sense when your confidence isn't self-generated, but instead depends heavily on their attention or praise. Honestly, nothing repels genuine attraction faster. Psychologists call this having an external locus of control, where your self-worth is dictated by outside opinions, rather than your own internal values and principles. Men who constantly seek validation are like empty vessels, waiting for someone else to fill them up. This creates a dynamic where you feel like you're always performing, always needing external confirmation that you are enough. How does this show up? Maybe you fish for compliments. Did you think I did a good job? Perhaps you change your opinions to match hers simply to avoid potential conflict. Or maybe you find yourself becoming anxious or desperate for responses to texts or social media likes. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus offered timeless advice: seek not the good in external things, seek it within yourselves. Stop looking outward for your worth. Instead, develop your own internal metrics for success. Ask yourself, did I live today according to my principles? Did I act with courage and honesty? If the answer is yes, you need no external applause. Women are naturally drawn to men who are self-assured. Men who don't require constant reassurance because they know who they are. By cultivating internal validation, you project undeniable strength without needing to say a single word. Number 2, you avoid conflict at all costs. Men exhibiting weakness often fear conflict. They mistakenly believe that being constantly agreeable equates to being likable, thinking that saying yes to everything will make them more attractive. But this transparency is easily seen through. And frankly, it erodes respect. In psychology, this is related to submissive communication, where you suppress your own needs, desires, or opinions just to keep the peace. Over time, this inevitably breeds resentment, both within yourself and often from others who sense your lack of backbone. How does this manifest? You might agree with opinions you don't actually believe in, just to avoid tension. You might apologize excessively, even when you've done nothing wrong. Or you back down immediately whenever challenged, regardless of your position. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Being stoic doesn't mean avoiding conflict altogether, it means engaging in it wisely and calmly when necessary. Practice assertive communication, express your opinions clearly and respectfully. without resorting to aggression. Women respect men who can stand their ground with dignity. Remember, strength isn't about dominance, it's about knowing when to speak up and when to remain silent, without fear guiding your choice. Number 3, you can't control your emotions. A man ruled by his emotions is like a ship lost at sea, tossed about by every wave. Women are often deeply perceptive to emotional instability. Whether it manifests as outbursts of anger, consuming jealousy, or crippling insecurity, these reactions scream weakness because they signal a fundamental lack of self-mastery. This emotional volatility often stems from a lack of self-awareness and poor coping mechanisms. Instead of processing feelings calmly, the reaction is impulsive, driven by fear or ego. How might this appear? You become overly defensive when criticized. You overreact dramatically to minor inconveniences. Jealousy consumes you if she simply talks to other men. The Stoic solution is powerful. Seneca famously said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Emotional mastery begins with understanding that your feelings, however intense, are not immutable facts. They are temporary reactions. Practice mindfulness and reflection. When you feel anger, insecurity, or jealousy rising, pause, breathe, observe the emotion without immediately acting on it. Over time, this practice builds resilience and a calm under pressure, qualities that women often find incredibly attractive. A man who can remain composed amidst chaos signals a strength far more potent than any physical display. Number 4, you talk more than you act. There's an old saying, a lion doesn't have to tell you it's a lion. Yet, too many men fall into the trap of talking endlessly about their dreams, intentions, and supposed abilities, without ever demonstrating tangible proof of their worth. Women tend to pick up on this mismatch instantly. They hear the lofty promises, the bold declarations, the endless someday plans, and they often recognize it as just hot air. Why does this signal weakness? Because talk without consistent action is often insecurity in disguise. It's an attempt to seek validation through verbal displays rather than through tangible results and achievements. A man who constantly talks but consistently fails to act reveals deep down that he might be unsure of himself. He's trying to convince not only others but perhaps also himself that he's capable. Psychologists might call this impression management, the desire to carefully shape how others perceive you. But here's the irony, the more you talk about what you will do, the less impressive you often become. Words are cheap, action is rare and valuable. Women respect men who don't just make promises but quietly deliver results. When a woman hears a man endlessly bragging about future successes he hasn't earned, she often perceives someone lacking discipline and follow-through. He risks being seen not as a builder, but as a dreamer stuck in idle fantasy. Signs you might be falling into this trap include, constantly telling people about your goals but never taking measurable steps, exaggerating your achievements to seem more impressive, making promises you know you can't or won't keep. A man who talks more than he acts becomes predictable and, potentially, untrustworthy. Women are naturally drawn to the opposite, those who move with quiet confidence, surprising others with their accomplishments rather than their empty boasts. Number 5, you blame others for your problems. A man who refuses to take responsibility for his own life might as well wear a neon sign flashing "I'm weak." Few things dismantle attraction faster than a man perpetually playing the victim, constantly pointing fingers at the world, his circumstances, or other people for his shortcomings. This behavior often stems from a fragile ego that simply cannot handle the discomfort of failure or inadequacy. Blaming others acts as a defense mechanism. It shields you from facing the harsh reality that many of your problems might be, at least in part, self-created or within your power to influence. But here's the catch: by refusing to take accountability, you also forfeit your power to change your circumstances. Women often instinctively recognize this. They see that a man who constantly blames others is a man unlikely to grow. He's someone who might wallow in self-pity rather than rising to meet life's challenges head-on. This mindset signals weakness because it demonstrates a lack of resilience, maturity, and emotional intelligence. How does this manifest in daily life? You constantly complain about your boss, your job, or your co-workers, but take no concrete steps to improve your career situation. You blame your ex entirely for the failure of past relationships. Without acknowledging your own role, you chalk up your lack of success to bad luck instead of honestly assessing your own actions and decisions. Conversely, women are drawn to men who own their mistakes. Accountability signals strength. It shows you possess the courage to face adversity honestly and the capacity to learn and grow from it. A man stuck in blame remains stagnant and ultimately less attractive. Number 6, you struggle to say no. A man who can't say no is often perceived as a man without boundaries. And women can sense this lack of internal structure almost instantly. At first, your willingness to be agreeable might seem appreciated. But over time, this behavior signals a deeper issue, a potential lack of self-respect. When you habitually say yes to everything, you're not necessarily being kind or generous, you risk being perceived as spineless. You can become a people pleaser, bending over backward primarily to gain approval or avoid any form of conflict. And here's a harsh truth: people, including women, generally don't deeply respect those who cannot stand up for themselves or protect their own time and energy. The inability to say no often stems from fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others, fear of conflict. But this constant compliance creates a vicious cycle. The more you say yes to things you don't genuinely want to do, the more people may come to expect it from you. Eventually, you risk losing control of your own life, becoming a passive participant rather than the active leader of your own destiny. How does this weakness show up? You consistently agree to social events or favors even when you're exhausted or genuinely uninterested. You allow others to take advantage of your time and energy without pushback. You avoid saying no simply because you don't want to seem rude or selfish, even when the request is unreasonable. Women respect men who have clear boundaries and the courage to enforce them respectfully. A man who can say no when necessary signals strength, confidence, and self-respect. Without these qualities, you risk coming across as weak and easily manipulated, a dynamic that quickly erodes attraction. Number 7, you lack purpose. Perhaps the most profound, yet subtle, signal of underlying weakness is a man who appears to drift through life without a clear sense of direction or purpose. Women are often naturally drawn to men who live with intention, men who have a mission, a passion, or a set of guiding principles driving them forward. A man without a discernible purpose, however, risks becoming almost invisible, blending into the background as just another aimless wanderer. Purpose isn't necessarily about achieving fame, accumulating vast wealth, or undertaking grand, world-changing achievements. At its core, it's about having a reason to get out of bed in the morning, a goal, a passion, a craft, or a set of values that guide your actions and give your life meaning. Without this internal compass, life can feel hollow, marked by distraction and the pursuit of meaningless pleasures. A man lacking purpose often exhibits certain behaviors. He might spend excessive hours scrolling through social media or binge-watching shows without any accompanying sense of accomplishment or progress. He might drift from job to job without any clear career path or ambition. He might prioritize fleeting pleasures, partying, meaningless hookups, or acquiring material possessions, over long-term personal growth and contribution. Women can often sense this lack of purpose because it radiates from your actions, your conversations, and even your body language. It signals a kind of stagnation, perhaps even a refusal to strive for something greater than immediate gratification. Conversely, when a man has purpose, everything about him can change. His energy often becomes magnetic. He moves with more confidence, speaks with greater conviction. He doesn't need to constantly seek external validation because his fulfillment comes primarily from his internal drive and the pursuit of his goals. Attraction isn't just about looks or charm, it's deeply connected to the life force you carry within you. And purpose is the foundation of that vital force. Without it, you risk being forgettable. With it, you become truly unforgettable. So, these 7 habits: seeking constant validation, avoiding conflict, lacking emotional control, talking more than acting, blaming others, struggling to say no, and lacking purpose, are subtle saboteurs of your perceived strength. Recognizing them in yourself is the first crucial step. Remember, true strength, the kind that commands respect and attracts positive connections, is built from the inside out. It's about self-mastery, integrity, and living with intention. Eliminating these weakening habits isn't always easy, but the journey towards internal strength is one of the most rewarding you can undertake. Thank you for watching. Did you recognize any of these habits? If you found value in this breakdown and enjoy exploring paths to personal growth, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more insights. We appreciate your support. See you next time.